Joe Pasillo, Joe Rossinello, and once more, dear brothers and sisters, let us go into the breach. So, Joe, here's the thing. I don't understand something. People say follow the science, follow the science, follow the science. Joe, let's be clear. People who agree with the regular average person who says that they agree with the climate change agenda, you don't follow the science. You haven't looked at the science. All right, and I'm not going to say that I've looked at the science. I just think I think there's an agenda. All right, that's being pushed on people. So because I know that there's an agenda. It's not because I believe there's an agenda. Of course, there's an agenda. These people are basically like Rush Limbaugh used to call them. They're watermelons. They're green on the outside. They're red on the inside. They're Marxists. They're communists. They want state ownership of the means of production, or something along those lines. And they use environmental fear. All right, fear of climate change and the apocalypse to gain more power for themselves. My problem is that people actually believe this nonsense. People actually let it affect their lives. Now, outside of laws, okay, that force you to do these things, laws that we need to resist and fight against, you have people that actually make personal decisions based on this lie. And in this particular article, 53% of parents say climate change affects their decision to have more kids. I mean, Joe, is this a joke? Help me out, brother.
Sadly, it isn't, and it's actually just the opposite. And Elon Musk just brought this out. Many countries, particularly in Europe, have a negative birth rate, and their countries are basically suffering as a result of it. In fact, China, Russia, to name two, are incentivizing families to have more children because of that negative birth rate. What do I mean by a negative birth rate? You don't have enough people to provide the services your country needs to exist and survive. And this is very real. And there's countries like Italy. Families aren't even having, it's like 0.7 kids,
Right.
meaning like Italy. This is like a country that had tons of kids. It's pervasive in Europe, and it's problematic. It's actually just the opposite of what they're saying. And these climate alarmists got it all wrong. The world needs people. And
Right.
frankly, the country to watch, if you ask me, is India. Know why? It has the largest population of under 35-year-old people in the world. What does that mean? The workforce. You have a workforce that could sustain a country. Intellectual capital. Countries that don't have kids do not thrive. Right. It's exactly the opposite, Joe Pasillo.
And the funny and well, not funny thing is, the sad thing is, Joe, is that, like I said, leave aside the science of it, okay? These people have been predicting the apocalypse for decades. Let me give you an example. In this article from LifeSite News, it says, even though the dire predictions made by scientists, politicians, and climate activists have continuously been wrong in the past, many are still influenced by the constant propaganda of climate doom to the point where they decide to have fewer children, despite the fact that, as you said, Joe Rossinello, birth rates are already historically low in most countries. Here's an example. The date when the Arctic Ocean will allegedly be ice-free has been moved back several times in recent decades. The website extinctionclock.org provides a list of alarmist climate predictions that have been proven spectacularly false over the last 50 years. You know what this reminds me of, Joe? This reminds me of all those people out there. They call themselves Christian, and they use the Bible, and they use the ages of people and all that, and they try to move forward and move back according to biblical timelines, and they say the earth's going to end, or the second coming of Jesus Christ is going to be on June 22nd, 1983. And then the second coming doesn't happen on that date. And they go, oh, we were wrong in our calculation. It's going to happen on December 23rd, 1999. And it's like, oh, and they keep pushing it back. Joe, these people do the same thing. They're all false prophets, is what they are. These other people, they're false prophets when it comes to the second coming of Christ, because as we know, nobody knows the time or the hour. And these people do the same thing. They're false prophets of doom when it comes to climate change. They don't know. This is never going to happen, but it keeps the fear alive, and that fear has very real consequences. And my view is this, and I'll hand it over to you, Joe. When your society collapses because you decide based on these lies not to have a family, not to have children, shame on you. but go and cry in your coffee. But don't come bitching to Joe Resinello or Joe Pasillo, because we're not hearing it. Give you the final word, Joe.
Well, Joe, you said something that's interesting. It's being used as a tool to gain power. I mean, we saw that sadly with the pandemic. It was the largest economic shift in cash. They say they're for, a lot of the progressives say they're for the working people. It was the largest economic shift from poor to rich in I don't even know how long. It was used as a tool. Governments picked winners and losers. Certain companies were winners, other small businesses were losers. Ultimately, climate alarmism is a tool used by elitists to take power. You don't believe me? Talk to people throughout Canada, talk to people in Europe, and it's coming to a theater near you in America shortly.
That's right. And we better, well, we watch out for it. I wish people would get their head out of the sand, or get their head out of some other place that it's stuck up, and open their eyes and understand what's going on. We're going to leave it there. Thanks for joining us here at the Frontline with Joe and Joe. Stick around for more great content.